toward the portal of a small hollow, high up amidst the branches of a very peculiar sequoia tree, in the middle of the most unnatural valley you'd ever walk in. Upright on her two hind legs walked a small black rodent, a mouse in fact, the kind that had created the bronze door knocker, the kind that had carved the hollow out of the tree, and set forth the green door frame, and painted it so majestically, with a pinstripe, a single, of green, that formulated its way all around the door and around the knocker. It was the portal to their tiny home. A comfortable home. Not one filled with dirt, but the luxuries one would come to know of any home. In the forest it was truly a majestic sight to behold, especially in the radiant sunlight that streamed down a brilliant teal amidst the branches as it passed through the haze of the atmosphere, in an age of the earth unknown by the testaments of lore of man, for this was the world of magic. For it had come from the flow of the first waters from the polar ice caps as they had melted, at least this is what everyone had been told, by a very reliable source in fact, by the ancient ones who had waited forever and a day for that period of their time and hiding would come forth, and they would see and reveal the true history of the earth. Upon an ancient world, long after humanity had lost the chronicles of their own history, in microchips in the concrete forest that once passed by, rubber cars, and the streamlines of chariots, into a legend in the valley which had lay hidden in the highlands between the western cascades of the Pacific Rim of Fire. The only surviving sign of the past age lay dormant against the base of the mouse's family tree, the sequoia, a form of a giant steel mechanical ghost crab, with an X1 on the side. It was called Bahamut, for everyone had learned to read, and they could certainly read the chemicals that sprayed the side red against the gray. This was not a pack of dirty little mongrels who scampered around on all fours to feed upon rubbish, but an honorable and ancient family of mice whose name was the lineage of Gallant, and they had lived 100 generations in that hollow and about that tree, in a valley so unnatural, with a formulation of beauty in the aftermath of magic and the last and final war. The valley was peaceful, home to several civilizations, including that of the trolls that dwelled along the northern borders in a citadel built of stone out of the side of the mountain. The angels, or to us humans better known as elves, as they penned themselves into our history, along with their kin, who are demon. Some might call them orcs, but this is not their true identity, for they are another breed all themselves. The orc are kin to the goblins, and there are few there in the valley, but they live amongst the trolls and the dwarves of that city. For the elves and the angels, for some had wings, they lived in the northwest, mostly underground, though there was a small village above, and it was a beautiful sight to behold, and the festivals of light, and the music as they danced and mingled themselves about, for all were invited, for there was peace between everyone and everything. Another city there also was in the marshlands, far beyond, and therein were hidden many elves, and their kin, the demon, who lived underneath the swamp, in a city of sin and power. For they were beautiful people, they were monks, and they never left, so no one judged them or claimed anything over them, but they were magical and beautiful, and their allure was on life itself, for they seemed to stream a dialect of beauty and magic whenever they spoke. And there was the mice who lived in the trees, and this is where we found the family, 250 feet up high, in a redwood oft known as sequoia tree. The magic had made them thick, especially in the forest where the canopies were too. There was the sequoia trees, and then below the arbutus and manzaniti that twinkled and bound themselves into a labyrinth. And from the tiny shafts in her window of an unnaturally large tree, she saw and waited for sleep. It is in the middle of this valley that we find the hollow, and the gallant family that dwell therein. Near the slope therein, at the bottom of the ravine lies a stream one might call a river, which is not utterly too steep until you come to the edge. And as I have already told you, the particular mice in question are not dirty, and they are definitely not mongrels. But they wear clothing too, some of them, even tunics and belts to uphold their waistbands and their armor and their weaponry, for they had guards too that guarded their city. They were knights of tiny power and beauty. The hollow's portal was held fast by a bronze knocker, fashioned in the head of a dragon, for its shape was of power, and that was the symbol of the gland, stuck in the center of the wooden-painted golden striped door, most commonly opened for generosity to any visitor who would come about. Once invited to the threshold, beyond it which you find the smell of cooking, drifting from the kitchen, where a tiny fire would be kindled throughout the course of the day, for mice seem to eat endlessly. Inside the main entrance hall, you flung your jacket against the rack, and the coat stand on the other side, and the hat, and the scarf, and your waistcoat, and your cloak, whatever it is that carried you and kept you safe from the wind and the howling of the rain so high up in the trees. Your equipment for hunting, bows, javelins, arrows, spears, and swords and axes and other such weaponry. In the main audience chamber, known as us to the living room, there are several armchairs and sofas. This is a well-adorned bookshelf room with several pictures painted of ancient family members. And the cupboards were filled with dry stores of food and goods. In the pantry had flour and pots and pans that hung from overhead. Upon the round staircase beyond the kitchen were more paintings that led up to 3 floors to the bedrooms. They were made to be hollowed out in comfort. Each had a coat rack, a bed table, a dresser, and a bed made of dry leaves stuffed in a frame that was merely a sheet. Beside it was the dresser, and some of them, especially the black mouses, had a mirror. On any given day that you had passed by, from the deep surrounds you could hear laughter from the forest folk, especially the mice, who enjoyed many a game of chase and hunt and family in the preparation for a raid, which was usually led to a war. Through the mouse wars there was never bloodshed. It was just another game in the reenactment of a famous battle, epic no doubt. When someone did die, it was usually a slip and a long drop to the forest floor. That is what happens in war. Not all the beasts had woken up by magic during the times of humanity's decline, in which the last war had ended when the pure water had flowed into the oceans out of the Arctic realms. And up from the deep, the earth had swelled, and they remained asleep for 1,000 years and more cycles of an age. Upon the 4-foot thick branch the gallant family had brought earth, and they had tilled it with grains, and many a little carrots they remained. And this was the mug of ale that handed itself off on the symbol that was a dragon head and a carrot, a tale of heroic deeds, the tale of a family. This has been the first chapter of the prelude of the World's Over Journal. I hope you've enjoyed it, for out of this comes more power to change, to show the world that something beyond lies beautiful in a story that I'm adapting from my own memory in the moment that you are hearing.